A spacepod passes by the sun as it quickly approaches Earth. It houses two Saiyans, a father and a son, Bardock and Kakarot. They had just escaped a doomed planet. Bardock dreams about his last moments on Planet Vegeta. Bardock told Gine about his suspicions of Frieza, that their race was soon to be destroyed. Though she was skeptical, she trusted her husband. He was not going to accompany their son at first, but Gine insisted. She said that someone needed to take care of him and that he should know someone from their planet. She would contact Bardock once their home world was safe. The Saiyan hoped that he was wrong and awaited her signal. In the meantime, he intended to simply stay hidden, but some slight turbulence caused the pod to crash harder than expected, taking the top of a small home along with it. Bardock hugged Kakarot to protect him, but they were both launched out of the ship as the door opened. Kakarot was okay, but Bardock was unconscious. He woke up a few days later in the same house the ship nearly destroyed. His head was wrapped in bandages, and his armor was set to the side. He was okay, but freaked out about Kakarot. He ran outside to find an old man playing with him. The father zoomed in to hold Kakarot tight, away from the old man. The old man laughed, explaining that there was nothing to worry about. His name was Son Gohan. He had been the one to nurse Bardock back to health, but Bardock wasn't interested. He retreated with his son to a nearby cave. As they heard Gohan simply laugh, going back into his house. A few days passed with Bardock working out in the cave, his eyes glued to the scouter laying on the ground. But nothing came of it. He would never hear the voice of Gine ever again, but he refused to believe it. One day, while working out, he heard something come into the cave. It was a tiger, and it was carrying Kakarot by the armor out of the cave. But before Bardock blasted the tiger away, the old man saves Kakarot, kicking the tiger gracefully and catching the kid on one arm while holding a basket. The tiger scurried away, while Gohan gave the child to Bardock. Gohan thought that the kid might be hungry, so he brought them some food. Bardock was impressed by Gohan, not by the power, but rather the martial arts he showed. By all accounts, and as far as he knew, humans shouldn't be this strong nor proficient in martial arts. Gohan invited Bardock back to his home. The Saiyan still wasn't sure, but he was getting tired of the cave, so he accepted. Over the next few months, Bardock helped Gohan build a side room for the small home, for him and Kakarot. Bardock mostly stayed for the food, but he was really interested in the martial arts the man showed. Bardock was hundreds of times stronger, but Gohan had some impressive moves the Saiyan had never seen before. To pass the time, Gohan taught the little Kakarot some things, while Bardock watched. The child clearly enjoyed himself, and Bardock smiled, seeing a lot of his mother in him. Bardock told Gohan about the Saiyans, Frieza, and their work for him. This made Gohan really want to see Bardock stay on Earth through. He thought that Bardock could be better, more than just this planet hunter. Gohan thought that it was all crazy, but he had been through enough to know that it was true. Gohan tried to tell Bardock that he didn't think Gine nor the rest of the Saiyans were alive, but Bardock wouldn't hear it. In fact, he took offense to it. He threatened to kill Gohan more than once, until Gohan finally suggested that maybe he should go back and check. Bardock stormed out, telling Gohan to take care of Kakarot. The whole trip had him worried, but when the pod finally made it to the site of Planet Vegeta, his heart stopped. There was just a clump of asteroids. With a heavy heart, he retreated to Earth. Gohan awaited his arrival along with Kakarot, who sported a new gi rather than the armor. Bardock was quiet, but he faced Gohan while kneeling beside his son. Bardock told Gohan that he was right, but he needed to be proactive. He wasn't going to wait around. Bardock wanted to train, something the Saiyans rarely did. He was going to learn techniques and get stronger to avenge his planet and his wife. He wanted his son to become strong as well. Gohan didn't like his reasoning. He tried to talk him out of it. He tried to explain that martial artists don't use their power for this kind of thing, that he should keep his emotions in check. Gohan meditated for a while about this, and even in those meditations, he felt a dark aura surrounding Bardock. He was worried that if he helped him, it could mean something bad for the world. But he decided that he'd rather help Bardock and try to teach him about Ki, move him away from his vengeance, rather than leave him to dwell in his own anger. And he did just that. In a short time, Bardock learned everything Gohan knew about Ki, as well as some martial arts techniques. Bardock actually ended up really liking Gohan. In fact, one night, while Goku went out to get some food, Bardock heard screams from Gohan. He went out to check, but instantly turned back. There was a full moon. Couldn't risk stepping out and losing control. Instead, he instructed Gohan on what to do. Target Goku's tail. He already knew what was happening. His son had transformed into an Ozaru. Bardock hated to say it, but the most surefire way to stop Kakarot's Ozaru form was to cut his tail. Gohan achieved it with a blast. Bardock made sure to tell Kakarot about the Ozaru and how dangerous it could be. The tail would regrow soon anyways. But Bardock had changed little over the time with Gohan. In fact, he'd become even more violent, his emotions brewing within him. Gohan saw an opportunity opportunity to further Bardock. After many years of raising Kakarot and helping Bardock, a young woman appeared at their doorstep. Her name was Bulma. She needed help finding the Dragon Balls, as well as wanting the Dragon Ball that Grandpa Gohan had. He was reluctant, but then he thought of something. Perhaps this would be a great time to have Kakarot and Bardock separate. This would be a great test for Kakarot if he went with this girl. Meanwhile, Gohan and Bardock would venture on their own. Kakarot was already excited about the idea. He liked the thought of having to catch up with his father. Bardock, however, was unsure. He didn't want to leave his son alone, but Gohan promised him that he'd be okay. Bardock never trained too much with Kakarot. He didn't even really tell him about Frieza. He didn't want Kakarot to follow him on some crazy adventure. He justified it as thinking that his son was just too weak to amount to anything. But in reality, he saw too much of Gine in him. He didn't want to get him hurt. So any training he did have was from Gohan, but at least he could watch him. This would be the first time without him in a long time. But Bardock accepted. It was time to venture out. Above all, he wanted to find more techniques that he could use against Frieza. He didn't believe anything about these Dragon Balls. It was clearly all just mumbo jumbo. Either way, they were going to go their separate ways. So from here on, at least for the first 2 arcs of Dragon Ball, Goku's adventures are pretty much the same, except for 1 or 2 things. For example, Gohan and Bardock actually get to the Ox King first. Grandpa Gohan wanted to visit his old training partner. They help the Ox King and Chi-Chi turn off the fire from Mount Frypan. And when Goku shows up, the Ox King is already willing to give him the Dragon Ball. After all, this was Bardock's kid. Come on now. But all of this simply gave more drive to Kakarot, because through his adventure, sometimes he would just be shown off by his father, such as the time with the Ox King. Another point where Kakarot did something different was the Pilaf gang. He developed into a kind of a little different personality. He still loved life, training, battles, and he was pretty silly, but sometimes he could be a little more serious. Analytical, just like his father. So the Pilaf gang only managed to capture his friends, not Kakarot himself. He escaped and rescued his friends just in time for Oolong to make his wish. He stayed inside of the castle the whole time, knowing the full moon was out. He explained to his friends exactly why he couldn't leave. They didn't believe him, but they stuck with him. Gohan tried to show that there was other ways to evolve. This included actually helping out Nam's village and getting them some water. Bardock felt uncomfortable about this whole situation, but he did it, and he did find some kind of satisfaction through it. They also came in contact with soldiers. They didn't know who they were or what they were looking for, but they were building a strange tower in the Icelands. It was clear that Bardock needed some new clothing for their adventures, so Gohan took out his old training gi, the Turtle School staple. Bardock wore that along with a robe, but keeping the armor on.
Hey kids, don't go away. We'll be right back.
I hope you guys are enjoying the video, and if you like the stuff I do, there's a way you can support the channel. By clicking the membership button, you will be able to see various tiers. Each one of them has some rewards. My personal favorite ones are the Super Saiyan hair badges that adorn your name in comments and live streams on my channel. The longer you stay a member, the larger the power up. So if you like the stuff I do and feel like supporting me in some way, be sure to check out the membership. Anyways, back to the show.
Back to our show.
Through their travels, Gohan did notice some changes in Bardock. He seemed to be more willing to help people, a little nicer, less aggressive. But by the time they were going back to Mount Pautsu, Bardock took a step back and realized just what he was doing. It was as if he was just being distracted from his true goal. He wasn't going to allow this to happen. Part of him missed being the old Saiyan warrior he was. He couldn't risk leaving Earth or anything like that, but he was sure he could find another way to satisfy his needs. Grandpa Gohan tried to stop him, but they had a falling out. Grandpa Gohan arrived at Mount Pautsu alone, and one day Goku came back to get some of his clothing. He was going to be training with Master Roshi. He asked where his father wasn't, and Gohan was just a little silent. He didn't really know what to say, but he told Goku that Master Roshi is a great master, and that he'd accompany him. Goku would then enter the 21st World Tournament along with his friend Krillin, but all in hopes to attract his father's attention. Meanwhile, Bardock took some jobs here and there, mostly for food. He became some sort of mercenary. It was pretty easy for him to track down people with his scouter, fly over to them, and either finish them off or turn them in. He didn't do it for the money, but just because it was something to do. He also also met some strange people that oftentimes showed off their greatest techniques before being finished off by Bardock. This included someone named King Choppa. Eventually, he was hired by the Red Ribbon Army. He recognized their uniforms, he knew who they were, the same people that were building something in the tundra, but he took the jobs anyways. He became one of the most well-known assassins in the underworld, even catching the attention of Tao Pai Pai. He thought that there was no way that this Bardock could be any better than him, and eventually they were both hired to find one person. His name was unknown. All the Red Ribbon Army said to them was that he had a Dragon Ball, and that he was incredibly strong. That's when Bardock found himself at the lands of Korin. He was simply following Tao Pai Pai's trail, but was surprised to see that the person they were hunting was his son. This was the first time he had seen Kakarot in over a year, and his power had increased drastically. Kakarot was perplexed once he saw Bardock. He didn't know what to say. Clearly, Bardock wasn't going to kill him, but he wanted to see just what Kakarot could do. Kakarot couldn't help but ask why he left both him and Grandpa Gohan. Bardock didn't have an answer. He just watched. And to his disappointment, Kakarot was having quite a bit of trouble against Tao. He only intervened once Tao was sure he was about to kill Kakarot, throwing a kick against the assassin's face, right before he shot out the Dodonpa. Tao couldn't believe the power of that kick. He tried to fire more Dodonpas, but none of them hit. He deflected one right back. Bardock was going to walk away, but Kakarot stopped him, asking if he would go back with him to find the Dragon Balls, and returned to Grandpa Gohan. He told him a little bit about his adventures, about the 21st Tenkaichi Budokai, and how his Ozaru transformation was defeated by someone named Jackie Chun. This piqued Bardock's interest. Whoever this was must be incredibly powerful and have some strange techniques. To defeat an Ozaru like that, even if it's his weak son, he just couldn't believe it. But as they were talking, the defeated Tao threw a grenade at both of them. With a flick of his tail, Bardock threw the grenade right back. That was the end of Tao Pai Pai, as far as they knew. Though that Dodonpa technique was clearly powerful, he would have to take note of that. He had also heard about the Crane School through his travels, and he knew that Tao was related to someone named Shen, and had heard about Ten Shin Han, one of the greatest martial artists. He already had a goal in mind. He had to go to the 22nd tournament and enter. He saw the determination in his son's eyes about climbing Korin Tower. He was curious himself. Who could be up there? What could be up there? And in one of the few moments of true bonding with his son, he climbed the tower along with them. He watched them struggle to get the sacred water from Master Korin. He did feel a little proud of him, just to turn around and grab the water instantly himself. He knew the trick. This was no special water or anything. He simply smirked at the cat. He told Kakarot that they'd meet again, flying off into the distance. After the small adventure, Bardock decided that he needed to do something else. So he actually decided to follow around his son, but just from a distance. Sometimes even trying to predict where he would go, being ahead of him. He even watched him defeat the Red Ribbon Army. He was slowly getting stronger, but he still wasn't to the level Bardock wanted, and he still didn't want him hurt. Time passed, and the 22nd Tenkaichi Budokai arrived. Bardock entered in disguise. One of his first opponents was the legendary Jackie Chun that he had heard so much about. Bardock made sure to limit himself in order to see his best techniques. This included the Sleepy Boy technique, a drunken punch, and an enormous Kamehameha. This was clearly an incredibly powerful opponent. Jackie Chun, who was of course Master Roshi in disguise, already knew who this man was. It was a little hard to hide his hair after all. In the end, Bardock won, but his next match was against Ten Shin Han. Although he wasn't equal to him in power, his techniques definitely took him by surprise. His multi-form technique, growing extra arms, and especially that Kiko Ho. This is because that attack was so much stronger than Tien himself. However, he noticed that it took part of his life essence. But he knew that if he won that match, that he'd end up having to fight his own son in the final round. So, instead, he gave up. The tournament wasn't a right place for their match, and Kakarot wasn't ready just yet. He did, however, reveal just who he was. He shot a thumbs up to Kakarot, and this gave him the drive to defeat Ten Shin Han. After the tournament, Kakarot caught up with Bardock, asking him why he was leaving again. Bardock said that Kakarot wasn't ready, but that soon enough he would be. That's when Kakarot felt something deep in his heart. Krillin had been killed. Without regard for anything else, Kakarot rushed towards Tambourine. Bardock had never seen his son like this. He rode along with Bulma and Yamcha for a while. They thought he was really weird, just a smelly old man. But Bardock didn't care. It had been a long time since he could just relax, and he did step in whenever they were in trouble. In fact, he saved Yamcha by defeating Drum. He didn't see Kakarot again until his son's final battle against Piccolo. But Kakarot was seemingly going to lose. Even Tenshinhan begged Bardock to step in and do something. The tail around his waist undid itself, and Bardock took a step forward. A sparkle of electricity surrounded him. He wasn't going to let his son die. But then, he stopped. With his good arm, Goku put it out, yelling at Bardock to stop, that this was his battle to end. Bardock's energy dropped, and he looked at Kakarot in the eyes. Crossing his arms one more time, Piccolo was floating in front and above Bardock, and he could see everything. And so he watched as Kakarot pierced through Piccolo, ending him, ending the menace once and for all. He could almost hear the Ozaru roar. Omitted. Bardock's eyes were wide. He saw his son's simple smile, and in that smile, he saw his wife one last time. Every other time he saw Kakarot fight, it was against normal humans. It was something he just expected Kakarot to be able to deal with. But this was a Namekian. Kakarot was finally ready. Bardock could no longer try to shield him from things. Not only would he reveal to him things about Frieza, but it was time to train him as well. Bardock flew Kakarot over to Korin Tower. Korin gave him a sense beam. Korin had something to tell Kakarot. Someone wanted to meet him up above. Using the power pole, Bardock and Kakarot went up to Kami's lookout. There, they met Mr. Popo, and after some training between him and Kakarot, they met Kami. He wanted to teach Kakarot everything, but he was reluctant about having this Bardock around. But he saw something in him too, a dark aura. Although it had diminished greatly since the last time Grandpa Gohan looked into it, it made Kami fear it. It reminded him of his own dark side in Piccolo. He decided that just like Grandpa Gohan before him, it was better to train this person, teach him about life. But this was a different approach. Rather than see the world, this was mostly all spiritual. After all, this is when Goku in the original manga learns how to read ki and sense the presence of others. Bardock does this as well. Him and Kakarot learn a lot from Kami and from each other, even going into the time chamber for a bit. Kakarot couldn't make it in there long. Even Bardock had a lot of trouble staying there. But time passed, and it was time for the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai. It was there where Kakarot faced off against the spawn of the Demon King Piccolo. Goku's battle was intense, but his training along with Bardock made him a lot stronger. Not only had Bardock stopped Piccolo from eating the bottle containing Kami, but Kakarot was also able to defeat Piccolo a lot easier and earlier than normal. When Kami wanted to kill Piccolo, it was Bardock that stopped him, holding his hand up. After all, it was Kami himself that taught him to value life. And Bardock sensed something within Piccolo. It wasn't dark or vicious, at least not like others. He stared down at Piccolo. He could be a valuable ally. After Kakarot and Chi-Chi's wedding, Bardock had the idea to find all 7 Dragon Balls. He finally believed in the legend. He managed to gather them all, but once he summoned Shenron, his one wish, to become stronger than Frieza, was revealed to be too much. The Eternal Dragon couldn't do something like this. It was far and above his power. Bardock damned the world, and for a second, the thought of immortality crossed his mind. Surely he would be able to do that. But then he realized what he was doing. He was a warrior. He lived for the fight. Being immortal would make the challenges meaningless. The second wish he wanted was to bring back Gine. But to his heartache, Shenron couldn't do that either. Not only had her body been destroyed, but her soul was more than likely reborn into a new being. And Shenron told Bardock so. After all, when a soul dies, their memories are completely erased in preparation to be reborn. Bardock punched the ground. There was nothing left for him. He wanted one final thing, something to remember the Saiyan race. He asked for old Saiyan garbs for the new member of his family, his grandson, who was going to be born soon. And for a few years, Bardock settled down. It seemed like a lot of Gine had rubbed off on him. He was enjoying life with a family. Something not many Saiyans could say they could do. But one day, while drinking tea with Grandpa Gohan, he felt an enormous energy. An energy he hadn't felt in many years. He couldn't believe it. His firstborn, Raditz, was alive. He got up, rushing towards the landing site, waiting to meet his son. But that's for next time on Dragon Ball Z. Thank you so much for watching, guys. It means the world to me, as always. Shout out to Professor Chimp for helping me with spitballing back and forth some ideas for this what if. I think our Bardock turned out pretty cool, and it's always a lot of help to have somebody there to ride along with. Shout out to the Super Saiyan Legend members of the channel: Zachary Croy, Anime Asteroid, Jiggly Booties, Erica Brown, and Mech. Thank you guys for your support. If you want to find out what happens with this Bardock and Kakarot, be sure to share, comment, and subscribe. Especially share if you want that part too. And I know a lot of you guys aren't subscribed, but it really helps the channel and helps bring these videos along. So if you're not subscribed, why not do it now? Thanks for watching, guys, and until we meet again. See ya!
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Smugstick, unless you want to be destroyed.
Lord Beerus, that's hardly fair. But also, don't forget to click the bell icon to get notified when he uploads new videos.